all four of the main species of turkey states where they have them. Down in Florida, Bob and Jay's turkeys are not the same turkeys we have. Those are called Osceolas. Here we have Easterns. So you can see that's the only place that you can shoot one of those. So you have to go down to that part of the world to do it. Easterns take up most of the eastern half of the United States. And then we have Merriams and Rios that are the main ones. There are some other weird ones out there too. If you get on the internet on your phone sometime and Google the different turkeys, you'll find some goofy looking birds out there that you might find in the zoo as well. So males, the big thing that we hit on this, especially for you kids, is how to ID a turkey when you're in the woods or when you're driving down the highway. Turkeys are 400 or 500 yards out there. How do you know if it's a boy or a girl, if it's a tom or a hen? Males are dark. So if you see toms and hens in the field, most of the time the blacker looking one is the male. So that's an easier way to do it. You can also tell on their throat, and their feathers are different. Females are usually smaller. Although on this hunt a few years ago, we had a female right in front of our blind that was strutting and did everything that a tom gobbler would do, and she was huge. Distinctive things about the male. This is what we're after tomorrow, right? We're going to try to shoot a bearded turkey. Okay? Rudd will get into the regulations of all that, but you see that long beard on the front of that guy? That's what we're looking for. And then they'll also have spurs down on their feet. Hen, on the other hand, is much lighter colored. It's got that slate gray head and typically doesn't have much for spurs. And typically doesn't have a beard. Every once in a while we see a bearded hen here and there. What do they eat? So acorns, grass, crabgrass, all kinds of stuff they eat. In this part of the world there's a lot of corn. All across the north half of the state there's a lot of corn. So I've seen some oversized, unhealthy, diabetes-looking turkeys because they've gotten into some cattle lots where they're feeding corn. They're also really good for bugs. And then behavior-wise, so we go through this process. If you see turkeys in the wintertime, and oftentimes we have this conversation with the folks in the public, with the department about, used to be so many turkeys, and now there's not nearly as many turkeys as there was. And that's true. Our landscape can carry so many turkeys and handle so many turkeys. It's called carrying capacity. It's how many birds can live year-round in that area. Well, certain times of the year, you're going to see more birds because they flock together. This time of the year, they start breaking up where you see smaller amounts of them. But if you get into December, January, you might look out across a crop field and see 200 birds together. And you thought, wow, where did all these turkeys come from? There were only 4 here in March. Well, they have a tendency to group up as a big family and run around until it gets to be what we're rolling into now is the breeding season. And what's the tom turkey look like when we get into the breeding season? Anybody want to demonstrate? Puff up real big like this? No? All right. So that's the main part I want to talk about of that. So in the wintertime, turkeys don't look like they look in groups that they do in the spring. And then this is where I'm going to switch over to Kyle Monroe. He's a forester, but he's a private lands guy, so he knows quite a bit about habitat. He helps the landowners in this county and a few other counties manage their ground for deer, turkey, and other things. So I'm going to turn it over to him and let him run through some of these slides. Right, yep.
So again, I'm Kyle Monroe, and I'm a private land forester for the Department of Conservation. So I get to meet with landowners and look at their habitat, mostly their forest acres, and give them advice, help with planning, and sometimes even get them cost share to get these projects implemented to improve their habitat. So I get to see a lot of different properties and meet a lot of different people. And I enjoy improving the habitat for wildlife and improving the health of their forest just as much as I love hunting. And Rob said it, and I'll say it again, that we're out here to be good stewards of the environment, make friends, have fun, and if we get to shoot a turkey, that's just a bonus. It's just fun being out there, and I can just about guarantee that everybody's going to hear a turkey gobbling in the morning, and just hearing them gobble right in the dark, right before the sun comes up, is just as much fun as all of the rest of it. Spending time with our family, getting away from technology, and just being out in nature. And so I just want you all to focus on that this next couple of days and just have a good time, okay? All right? So I'm going to also talk to you about habitat that turkeys like. So in Missouri, they live in mixed forests and grasslands. So mixed forest means that we have some areas we have little young trees, and some areas we have big old growth trees, and then there's areas we have a mix of both. And turkeys really are adaptable. They prefer all forest types for different parts of the year. So they like to roost and spend time and feed in the old growth forest, but they need different structure in the forest. They need young trees that are thick for nesting and reproduction. So it's important that we have a mix, a variety of forest type. They also need trees to roost at night. One thing that turkeys have in common across the whole country is that they need to live in an area where there's at least some tree component. So that doesn't have to be real tall trees. They were saying my dad just he just got his Rio last week in Texas. He said there's not many trees there, but they will go to the drainages and find cottonwood trees, or in some areas, all they need is small brushy trees. They might be small gamble oaks or pinyon pine juniper or something just to get them up off the ground at night. But that's a defense mechanism so that nothing will eat them while they're sleeping. So they need some kind of a tree component. They need that seasonal combination of food, cover, and water. Pretty much like us, right? You got your home you live in, and you eat food every day, and you drink water every day. Pretty similar, huh? A turkey's home range can be 3,000 acres. That's really seasonal as well. Rob was saying in the winter they flock up, and that's where they might move long distances to be in their flock and spend that winter time together foraging. But then they'll split up. Once they split up and they are in their breeding season, they're going to stay a little bit more local. Their range is going to shrink a little. So that 3,000 acres counts, that 5 square miles counts those seasonal changes. But they must have nesting and brood-rearing habitat, which is that thick, brushy cover, tree tops, or tall, warm season grasses where they can hide and make nests. Cover can mean to get out of the weather, or places they can get to water or escape flooding, or even nest in and escape from predators that are trying to eat them. What are some animals that might eat a turkey?
Coyotes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. What about if the turkey's still inside an eggshell? Maybe they're not even a turkey that's born yet. Yeah. So turkeys try to find places to build their nests where those eggs are going to survive. When those eggs hatch, they're going to have little poults that are going to need to survive. And those poults can't travel very far. They can't run and get up and fly like an adult turkey. So they need cover, they need food, and they need water, all within a small proximity of each other. In Missouri, we're pretty lucky. We have that in most parts of the state. But it's important that we manage and make sure we can maintain that habitat across the entire state for our turkey population. So in the springtime, they eat acorns, grass sedges, oats, forbs, and insects. That's everything on the buffet right there. You know when you're walking out in the woods and you come home and you gotta pull all those things off your pants? Stick tights or cockleburs sometimes we call them. Well, those stick tights are actually seeds, and they are very beneficial for turkeys. So even though you don't like them and having to pull them off all your pants, that is one of the primary food sources for turkeys in the summer, spring, or mostly summer and fall. They like acorns, but they really like insects. They need bugs. They need that protein, especially the little poults. They eat a lot of insects to make them grow big and strong. And if we have a bad insect population, that can be a reason why some little baby turkeys just don't make it to an adult. Where to hunt? So, most of the state of Missouri, 93%, is privately owned. So people ask permission to hunt. Sometimes they have family members that have land where they can hunt. Sometimes people lease ground that they can hunt on. So it's really important. It's really difficult sometimes to find a place to turkey hunt. And you have to ask permission before you go on private land. Okay? We don't just go on people's property without having permission to go there. Make sure you ask. But one thing that Missouri has done well is we have set aside a lot of land that's owned by the state of Missouri or the federal government, and sometimes that land is open to the public. You have to check the regulations on each area, but that land is available for people to go hunt on. So we try to provide opportunity for everyone in Missouri, and sometimes people from other states to come here and enjoy hunting and spend time in nature and potentially harvest an animal. And I'll let Rudd knows more specifically. Do you know how many acres of public land are in Clark County, which we're in right now?
In between 75 and 8,000 acres.
Yeah, this county is rich on public land hunting opportunities. We're fortunate here. We're going to be hunting on this private property that the foundation owns, but it's an area that if you end up loving turkey hunting as much as all of us do in this room, all the guys that are taking you, there are opportunities for you to continue to hunt. So in order to hunt, sometimes we start out by looking at the map so that we know where we're going, what the terrain is going to be like. And this map here shows topography lines. So all those lines show elevation change. And I believe that this one is 10 foot. So at each line represents a 10-foot elevation change. I'm 6 foot tall, so when I reach up, that's about 10 feet. So the closer these lines get together, the steeper the terrain is. And the further apart these lines are, the flatter it is. So there is no elevation change between here and here. That's a river bottom in a valley. So that would make sense, right? We know those valleys are usually pretty flat. And then we can start to look at how these lines funnel together. So this would be a drainage right here where this creek flows down into the bottom. We know this is a hillside, and this is a ridge that runs down. So we can study the maps and learn the area before we go out. And once you turkey hunt enough, you can look at some of these topography maps and kind of get an idea where it's likely that turkeys are going to be. And so if you want to travel out of state and go hunt somewhere else, you can start out by really studying these maps on these areas. They have apps you can put on your phones now that show the aerial photography. You can add in a topography layer. You can see the boundaries of private property so you don't trespass on accident. You can put pins on the map and make notes where those pins are. That shows you where your tree stands are, where you saw turkeys. You can put pins on two sides of the field and measure the distance so you know how far it is that you might have to travel to go after a turkey that's gobbling in the distance. So these are very handy tools you can learn how to use that will help new hunters. If you just absolutely love turkey hunting, like I know you're going to after this, you can look into our website. We offer managed hunts on some of our conservation areas. So we have youth hunts that you can apply for, and they do a random draw. So you put your name in with a bunch of other people, and they'll randomly generate names that are chosen. There's a lot of these hunts around the state. There's also disabled hunts that we put on, and then there's also just managed hunts that for anybody. We do managed hunts on our areas that aren't open for walk-in hunting. So walk-in hunting means that area is big, there's enough space for people to spread out and self-regulate, and so anybody can go there and hunt. These managed hunts are areas that are in urban areas, or they're a little smaller, and we know we can only let so many people go in there, and it needs to be a little bit more controlled. But I encourage you to check these opportunities as well. Most of the land that's open to hunting is owned by the Missouri Department of Conservation or the U.S. Forest Service in South Missouri. That's the Mark Twain National Forest, where there is some Nature Conservancy ground, there's some Corps of Engineer ground. There's a lot of opportunities out there to get out and hunt, even if you can't find private land. Again, just the golden rule is treat others with respect and be kind to each other on public land, and be safe. We all have to share that land. It doesn't belong to us, so we have to work together and